What's up, Backgammon fans? This is Marc Olsen from BackgammonGalaxy.com. In this video, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the legend himself, Mr. Paul Magriel. We're gonna do another breakdown of his 1976 Backgammon Bible. Well, it's not called a Bible; it's just called Backgammon. But it had the nickname of being the Bible, and it's a masterpiece. It was before the computer era, so. Obviously, we see a lot of errors and blunders in the book, but overall, he understood so many concepts at this time. So we can only be in awe of this masterpiece. It's still worth the read. Maybe not as the #1 recommended book for new players, but for historical purposes, it's a masterpiece and a great legacy. So in this video, we're going to talk about the opening theory of Paul Magriel in 1976, and we're going to compare it to today's opening theory, which has basically been solved by the AI algorithms, especially Extreme Gammon. So Magriel, he split up the opening theory in two chapters. One was in chapter 5 from page 52 to 58. I have the first edition here, so if you have a later version, maybe the page numbers are not exactly the same, but on my book it's from page 52 to 58. This is under the basics section of the book, which means that he deliberately dummies down the theory, or he makes recommended plays for a not so experienced player. And then later on in the book, in chapter 15, from page 205 to 209, he goes into what he called modern opening theory. But I'm going to talk about the whole thing, both chapters as being one, and try to say what Magriel had to say about this opening theory and how the cutting edge theory was back then. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so I just got a new Galaxy skin here for my Extreme Gammon, which is nice. So if you like it, leave me a comment below. We got it from a guy called Rain who designed it. It's really cool. And if you haven't already, smash that like button. Please do so. We need some YouTube algorithm points here to spread the backgammon love. Let's dive into it. Okay, Magriel, opening theory of 1976. Well, obviously the power rolls 3-1, 4-2, not 5-3, and 6-1. He got them all right. It's just very clear. 6-1, you make the 7 point. 3-1, you make the 5 point or the golden point. Well, he didn't call it the golden point. That he called the 20 point the golden point. And 4-2, of course, you make the 4 point. He got those right. So far, so good. 5-3, however, that's a funny one because this is the one he got wrong. Nowadays, we know that 5-3 is a clear opening play. We build the 3 point, we unstack the 6 point, we make a great asset here as an inner point. It's still part of our prime because it's part of the priming zone. What's there not to like? Well, for the top players in the 1970s, they loved purity. And what is purity? Purity is when you make your priming points in the right order. So in this case, the pure points would be the 7 point and the 5 point, because those are the pure points in your prime. It's what comes next. And if you make, let's say we make the 5 point with 3-1, now the pure plays are the ones that focus on the 7 point and the 4 point. And the deeper you go, the more impure you become. So in the 70s, they didn't like impure plays, probably because the opposition were not that high level back then. So you could really exploit your opponent simply by aiming for the priming game plan. Or either that, or they simply didn't truly value the blitz, because 5-3, making the 3 point is really good for the blitz. You make an inner point every time you hit. Your opponent has a harder time coming out. And let's look at how the position looks after the play. You are just 1 point away here from having the very strong structure of owning 3 of the top 4 points in your inner board. So for instance, if you roll a 4-2 next time, now all of a sudden you have a super powerful front position here. So I mean, making the 3 point with 5-3 is nowadays a clear play. We understand the value. But back then they were purists, and Magriel was no exception. He preferred to come down with 2 from the midpoint. He preferred this play. He didn't mention the slotting play. So he was clearly aware that coming down with 2 dominates the slotting play, which it does. It definitely does. You get to unstack the midpoint. You don't risk a direct shot, and you already have a very good spare checker distribution of builders for your prime. So slotting with 5-3 would definitely be an overplay when you have a nice alternative available as this. Actually, he didn't mention this one either. It's a little bit funny to talk about variations with 5-3 because nowadays we just know that it's such a clear play, but that's the way it was back then. Let's see here, Extreme Gammon. So you can see this is clearly the best play. This is the second best play. It's half a blunder, but Magriel didn't mention it, and it's actually just just more than a blunder to play 2 down like this. So that was the old days. Okay, so that was 5-3. Then we go into, he actually does something nice, I think. He groups the rolls together for learning purposes, and I kind of like that idea. So for instance, he has all the rolls that doesn't build anything, but brings 2 checkers down from the midpoint. In this category, it's fun because in the basics chapter, the first chapter of the opening rolls, he doesn't mention any of the splits. He mentions the running plays with 6-2, 6-3, 6-4, and 6-5 obviously. And then he mentions the two down plays with 5-2, with 5-4, with 4-3, and with 3-2. So that's the recommended play he has for beginners, and he says that this will increase your prime development, which that is totally true. But actually, there's one thing I feel like he fails to mention. For instance, when you bring 2 downs with 4-3, it's not just your prime value that goes up, it's also your blitz value, because now you have 10 checkers in the zone. I would consider coming down with 4-3 here from the midpoint with 2 checkers to be the move that forces the position into a more complicated position, because it goes it increases the speed of a prime development, so you get into more priming games, prime versus prime positions. It opens you up to getting hit with a fly shot, so it increases the likelihood of having the 3rd checker sent back. The more back checkers we have, usually the higher the complexity of the game. So I would recommend the splitting plays for the beginners, but he doesn't. He mentions the 2 plays down. One thing I like about it though, because it's very illustrative for a beginner to understand that we don't like stacks. We like flexibility. We like to take small risks early in the game in order to develop our positions. So maybe that was his idea of recommending 2 down with that group of rolls. So 3-2, 4-3, all that stuff. Then he has the running plays. So for instance, 6-2. In the first chapter, he doesn't talk about the slotting play with 6-2. Also, he doesn't talk about the split and down, which he very accurately comments on in the second chapter of the modern opening theory, that the split and down plays, they are, what's the word he uses? I forgot what word it was he used. Provocative. They're more provocative. And I kind of like that word, because they will often force a hitting exchange here on the bar point, and it's nice to unstack and start your development. And that is why this is the best play with 6-2. It's actually not really close in terms of opening equity. Obviously 28 millipoints is not a whole lot, but in opening theory it actually is. So that's the idea. That's the modern idea, the present day idea with 6-2. That is that you come out, split to the bar point, and you bring a builder down. But he was recommending the running play for the beginners, which is interesting. Let me just do this instead. It's a little bit better, then you don't have to worry about that ugly Extreme Gammon graphics. Yeah, so he was recommending to run the 6-2, 6-3, 6-4 for the beginners. In the later chapter that he called the modern opening theory, or modern opening rolls, something like this, he used the word modern, he does talk about slotting with 6-2. And he mentions that it's a move that experts like to play a lot. He also says some players like to play this one as well. Not too many experts, but you will see it. But his preferred play was actually the split and down. So that, I think that's pretty cool. He realized that this was the best move, the most balanced move, the best tactical move. And yeah, Magriel got this one right, actually. That was quite impressive. Then we got another funny roll, the 6-4. So 6-4, if you played this play back then, you would just immediately be labeled as a fish. This was just a no-go. They loved their purity. Purity was for them a universal backgammon concept, which it isn't for me. For me, purity is a very important backgammon concept, but it only applies when you want to play a priming game plan or a contact game plan. Not if you want to go for a blitz, and if you are in a racing game plan, maybe purity is good sometimes if you need your points for good landing spaces, but to be honest, it's not as important. So purity is important in priming games and contact games. So that is back games, holding games, all that stuff. So 6-4 again is also dismissed by Magriel. It's too deep, he says. It's simply too deep and impure. We don't like putting checkers down here. It destroys our priming game plan. No. That's a no-go. And nowadays we know that it's actually completely borderline whether you play either one of the three best plays. So you can make the deuce point, you can run, which by the way was Magriel's favorite play, or you could play the more complicated play, the split and down. And this builder here on the 9 point is very nice and active because it diversifies your point making numbers over here on your side of the board really well, unlike a spare checker or a builder here on the 10 point. We'll get back to that with the 4-3 later on. So Magriel dismisses making the 2 point and prefers the running play. Another little thing to notice is that Magriel didn't talk about match score when he was breaking down the opening theory. And nowadays we know that the match score actually matters quite a lot. For instance, if you're in a double match point situation, the running plays have more value. If you're in a gammon go situation, that's a match score where you really want to win a gammon, the deuce point comes up on the top, because this increases your blitz value. You're making an inner point, which is good for the attack and trying to keep your opponent on the bar and close him out. And then you have this play with the split and down, which is kind of a neutral play. Maybe it's the best play in money game or 0-0 at a long match, but they are really, really close. But for sure, when you're ahead in the match, making the deuce point becomes a small error, because now you prefer one of the two other plays. And at the same token, if you're behind in the match, the 2 point is a little bit better because of the increase in blitz. Yeah, so that's the 6-4. That was a good one. Then we have the minor splits. So for instance, 4-1, 4-1, 2-1, 5-1. He in the first chapter in the basic sections, he recommends making the minor split, which I like and agree with. So you can do that with 4-1, you can do it with 5-1, you can do it with 2-1. Just make the minor split. In the advanced section, he starts to mention the slotting plays. And he actually says that these, correctly so, should be preferred by the better player. Very good observation, Mr. Magriel. He also says that it's the preferred play of the experts, with both 4-1, 5-1 and 2-1. So nowadays the 2-1 slot still comes out on top. It's the best play. It's simply the best play. You unstack your two heavy loaded points, which is a great objective in the opening game. You slot the golden point, which is so crucial. It's the best point on the board. If you don't get hit, you will be in a beautiful position with even got a 6er here, which is the best builder of all of them, and 3s and 1s to cover. And if you get hit, the risk is not that big because your opponent is still underdeveloped in his front position. All he's got is 8 checkers in the zone for a blitz, and he doesn't have a prime yet. He's got 2 points here. So that is a worthwhile risk. The 4-1, however, in modern opening theory, we found out that this is actually a small error. It might be a better play still if you're playing a weak player and you're really trying to complicate the game, but in terms of game theory optimal, it seems to be better to just make the minor split. the main reason for this is that this builder on the 9 point is really active. So you already get so many point making numbers. You can just kind of visualize them, right? We've got 4-1, we've got 5-2, we've got 6-3, we've got 6-2, we've got 2-1, we've got all the standard ones, 3-1, 4-2, 5-3, we've got 6-1, of course. So you can see we've got 4-3, making the golden point 4-3. So you see we've got so many point building numbers already, so it's a little bit of an overkill to slot. So that's one of the reasons for that. With 5-1, it's a little bit the same argument here. Now is in terms of risk and reward. Now actually we like the slot more because it's going to be more difficult next time to build new points, because now we've got all of our builders on 2 points. That's not flexible. However, we miss that beautiful builder here that we got with 2-1 that also covers with a 6. So if we slot with a 5-1, we simply have fewer covers next time. It's just the 1, 3, and 8s. So it's more difficult to cover. For that reason, the game theory optimal theory prefers the minor split as well. But I think Magriel got these positions spot on. And he didn't really, he ignored this rather silly play coming out all the way here. It's not that it's bad to come out, it's just you need to unstack and you're already getting a split with a minor split. Then we get into the group of the major splits. And this one was a little bit peculiar, I think, because I mentioned it earlier, in the basic section, the first chapter of the opening plays, he didn't mention the splits. He did not mention this play, which actually with 5-4 we now know is the best play. It's not that it's a big mistake to bring 2 down. It's a very small mistake. It's more aggressive, so that's what you want to do if you're behind in the match. Because now you've got 10 checkers in the zone and you've got more checkers to develop your prime, more checkers to blitz. But the best play is now actually just to split with the back checkers. He didn't mention the major splits, so that would be 5-4 and 4-3. Also, you can split here either with a 4 or with a 3 and coming down. And what else do we got? I think that's it. So that's the major splitting plays. He didn't mention them before the very end of the second chapter, the advanced chapter. And he says he comes to the conclusion that they're actually pretty good. They're pretty good. Again, he talks about this thing about provocation, and he sees it as a little bit of a provocation that you step up here to one of the key points for your opponent. And he actually gives us a little golden nugget that he doesn't really emphasize it too much. He just writes it in one sentence that if your opponent doesn't know that you have to hit loose, for instance, if you play the 4 up to his golden point, let's say you play the opening like this, if he doesn't know that he has to hit loose with aces, an ace, a 3, or an 8, this is a brilliant play because now you're getting a chance for free to make the advanced anchor, which is so powerful. So I think that was a brilliant observation from Magriel. Another funny thing, with 4-3, he didn't mention the best play. So the best play with the major splits is actually splitting with the 3 instead of with the 4 to the 21 point. 2 reasons. Well, one major reason. The major reason is over here on this side of the board. As we talked about the builder here on the 9 point just before, the 9 point builder is so much more active, so many more point making numbers next roll than a builder on the 10 point, because on the 10 point you duplicate your own good numbers, especially 3-1 and 5-3. So you can see 3-1, you want to make the golden point, of course, but it's also the roll that makes your 7 point, so that's annoying. You don't want duplication of your own good rolls, you want diversification. It's your opponent's rolls you want to duplicate. And the same with 5-3, you're going to make the 5 point or the golden point, but it duplicates your 3 point roll as well. So he didn't mention this because he had a lot of focus on this point, that this was the golden point for Magriel, the 20 point. Now I say the golden point and I mean the 5 point or the 20 point alike. Your 20 point is my 5 point, But Magriel for the golden point was the 20 point. And for, I think it was Barclay Cook earlier on, he called it the golden anger. And for him, the golden point was the 5 point. That's something I learned after posting the last video. Shout out to Daniel Murphy, I think, gave me this information. Okay, so 4-3, he only talked about this major split. I think it's just because in Magriel's world, making the 20 point just dominates making the 21 point. And that's true, it does, it is better. However, it's a higher risk, higher reward, because getting hit loose on the 5 point is slightly worse than getting hit loose on the 4 point, because your opponent is now going to build a slightly inferior point. So it's splitting to the 21 point is lower reward but lower risk, basically. So the difference between these two splits are not too big, while the difference between the builder on the 9 and the 10 is quite big. So all in all, obviously it's very, very close if you ask the machine, but the smaller split to the 21 point and coming down with a builder to the 9 point is slightly better. Also, not to forget about the original move, the coming down with 2. This move, it stands the test of time. It's still a brilliant move. In money game, it actually is probably the best move. It's not the move you want to make if you're ahead in the match. Then you probably want to make one of the splits, because you're aiming for an advanced anchor and a less volatile game, a more of a racing, holding game orientation. But coming down with 2 is still a brilliant play. So then we had another fun one here. Maybe this is the last one I'm going to talk about. 5-2. So Magriel, he was just recommending this play, 2 down from the midpoint. That was the play recommended in the first chapter in the basic section, and also the recommended moves later on. He never mentioned the splitting play with the deuce, which is, I wouldn't say standard nowadays, but it is the best play from a game theory optimal strategy, and it's also the most commonly played play. So I would probably say maybe like 80% of the time in somewhat high level matches you will see this play being played with 5-2, but of course you still see coming down with 2 quite often as well. And actually when you're down in the match, again, you're starting to get the concept here. You want to play offensively and you want to come down with 2. It's the right play. Bring 10 checkers to the zone, more ammunition for a blitz and more builders for your prime development. But I just found it peculiar that he didn't mention the minor split with 5-2. Maybe because he didn't really value the deep anchors too much. For instance, he says that it's actually worse to have the 23 point than the 24 point. And there are some truths to that, because here on the 24 point you can jump with a 6, and you're only getting blocked directly by 1 point, which is this one. But if you step into the 23 point, now you're getting blocked by 2 points, and your 6s are blocked on your opponent's side of the board, which forces you to play the 6s on your side of the board, which is very often very annoying. So it's nice to keep your 6s open on your opponent's side of the board. Of course, in many positions, it's way better to have the 23 point than the 24 point. For instance, if your opponent has fully escaped his back checkers, he has freedom. Now we're playing a holding game, something like this, whatever. In this position, it's way better. In this position, it's way better to own the 23 point than the 24 point. You simply have more contact value here, because now you're not trying to escape anymore. Now you accept being primed. And now you're just playing for contact value, and you have way more contact value from the 23 point here than from the 24 point. You have more checkers in the direct contact zone, which is very useful, and you're not getting gammoned as much as when you're trapped on the 24 point. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I covered, let me look at my notes here. Did I cover all of it? Yeah, I think so. Cool. So let me know what you think in the comment section, guys, of this 1976 Magriel, the Bible breakdown. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, leave questions. I'll try to answer all the questions. And if you haven't already smashed that like button, please smash it, make it turn blue, and click the little notification bell as well so you get notified every time Backgammon Galaxy uploads a new video. And we're doing a lot these days. We're creating a lot of great content. So that's it for now. See you next time, guys.